are fighting a war 30 years in the future.
I gotta save the world to save my daughter.
Tokyo gameplay reveal at Sony's PS5 Focus State of Play back in June. Currently, its release date holds steady at October 2021. With any luck, things will stay that way. As for things we've been able to play over the last year, much of Bethesda's focus has been on live service games. After a year of struggling to make amends for its disastrous launch, Bethesda Game Studios added NPCs to Fallout 76 in 2020's Wastelander update. This proved a radical change for the game, finally making it feel closer to a multiplayer Fallout RPG rather than an abandoned apocalypse. In the following months, Bethesda has issued 4 chunky updates to Fallout 76. Among them is Steel Dawn, which finally ushered in the return of fan-favourite faction, the Brotherhood of Steel. The Elder Scrolls Online has also given us a year of great content. 2020's expansion pack Greymoor added the beloved region of Skyrim to the MMO. 2021's new Blackwood expansion then dropped in Oblivion's Cyrodiil and the Black Marsh, and with that, the Elder Scrolls Online has now visited all the settings of the mainline RPG series. That means Bethesda should probably get a move on with the Elder Scrolls 6 so that the Elder Scrolls Online has another region that it can copy. Outside of the company's flagship universes though, Bethesda's had a quiet year. The most notable launch has been Doom Eternal's 2-part The Ancient Gods DLC. While this campaign added some new ideas to id Software's celebrated shooter, it's not the same as a new big release, and so, for the majority of the year, eyes have been on Bethesda's future.
Rip and tear until it is done.
The first step there has already been hinted at by Wolfenstein developer Machine Games. The Swedish studio announced in January that it's developing an Indiana Jones game, but stopped short at revealing anything more than a teaser trailer. This has, naturally, generated a huge amount of questions. Could this be Bethesda's first Xbox exclusive? Will it be Microsoft's answer to Uncharted? And all importantly, how many Nazis will we get to hit with a whip? That brings us to E3 2021, where Microsoft and Bethesda Showcase could provide some of those answers. It could also be where we finally see Starfield, Bethesda Game Studios' spacefaring game that was announced back in E3 2018. Almost nothing is known about Starfield, making it a perfect candidate for a big gameplay-focused reveal. Provided it is actually ready to be shown, of course. Much less likely to be part of the show is The Elder Scrolls 6. Its announcement back in 2018 felt more like a reassurance that a Skyrim sequel will definitely happen. Bethesda boss Todd Howard has also been keen to temper any ideas that we'll see the game soon. Those are all the games that we know about, but with 8 developers as part of Bethesda Softworks, there stands a chance that we'll see something unexpected. id Software could be in a position to announce something new. However, a new Doom or Quake project, if in development, is more likely to be announced at QuakeCon in August. If there is a surprise game to be announced by Bethesda at E3 2021, then put your bets on Arcane. The developer's Leon Studio may be working on Deathloop, but the team in Austin has been quiet since the release of Prey back in 2017. Regardless of the announcements though, it will be the details that speak loudest on what kind of Xbox-focused future Bethesda has. Will all the new games be day one on Game Pass, like Xbox's other first-party studios? Or does Bethesda's unique position as an Xbox-owned publisher mean more platform and release flexibility? Whatever the answers may be, Bethesda fans from all console corners will be watching E3 2021 and hoping for the right announcements. And for everything else Bethesda and more summer of gaming, make sure to stick with IGN.
Hello everybody, June is here and it's a busy month for video games because E3 is right around the corner, but also a whole buttload of new games are on the way, so let's make this really quick because I got a whole bunch of other stuff I have to do this month. Here are June 2021's biggest game releases. On June 1st, the Warhammer 40k universe gets a little bigger and a little louder with Necromunda, Hired Gun, which ditches all that turn-based nonsense for big, loud first-person shooting on PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Series X, and PC. Then there's Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection, which is on PS4 and Xbox One and PC, following its Switch release from earlier this year. The cooperative espionage puzzle adventure Operation Tango hits PC, both PlayStations, and all 3.5 Xboxes. And then of course the Elder Scrolls Online expansion, The Gates of Oblivion, comes to PC and Stadia and will be hitting consoles later on in the month. On June 2nd, Sludge Life hits Nintendo Switch. This is a Devolver-published indie which is officially described as a first-person, open-world, vandalism-centric stroll through a polluted island full of cranky idiots. Sounds nice. That's all. Get ready to put the pedal to the other pedals with Tour de France 2021 on PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Series X, and PC. And if that sounds like too much cardio and bicycles and spandex, you can swap that bike and the unitard for a desk chair and some nice spreadsheets in Pro Cycling Manager 2021. It's a lot of work keeping these bicycle men in... I'm kidding. I'm sorry, I don't know what a Pro Cycling Manager does. Somebody's got to manage these bicycle guys. Somebody's got to manage these bicycle guys going up and down hills all day. They're just pedaling every which way, drinking all sorts of sports juices and whatnot. I don't know what that game's about. Anyway, on June 4th, Sniper Ghost Warrior Contracts 2 lets you shoot people in the head on PS4, Xbox One, and PC, and then DC Superhero Girls Teen Power on Switch probably doesn't let you shoot anybody anywhere, but seems like a nice time nonetheless. Also that day, the puzzle-focused Ori-like Evergate comes to PS5 following its release for basically everything else last year. And The Last Kids on Earth and the Staff of Doom comes to PC, PS4, Xbox One, and Switch, adapting a popular young adult graphic novel series turned Netflix show that I'm just now hearing about because I'm old and out of touch. Finally, there's the deep space survival horror game The Persistence, which will persistently scare your space pants off of you on PS5 and Series X. On June 5th, another new Goose game is out, except this one actually has a title, and it's called Mighty Goose. The game is kind of like Metal Slug, except it's about those horrible birds that crap all over soccer fields. That's on basically everything that comes with the controller, except for Google Stadia. On June 8th, chug some mead, launch your friends out of catapults, throw roast chickens at people, and otherwise get medieval in Chivalry 2 on PS4, 5, Xbox One, Series X, and PC. And if you'd rather do more serious stuff involving swords, there's always the Elder Scrolls Online, now for PS5 and Series X, with consoles also getting that Gates of Oblivion update I mentioned earlier. If that's not enough sword stuff for one day, the 8th is also the PC release of Edge of Eternity, a JRPG inspired by Final Fantasy, which is technically an FRPG because it's made by French people. If you'd prefer a JRPG actually made in Japan that isn't inspired by Final Fantasy because it is a Final Fantasy, Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade comes to PS5 on June 10th to hold you over until they finish remaking the rest of that damn game. I want to ride chocobos and go snowboarding already. That day also sees the release of Ninja Gaiden Master Collection on PC, PS4, Xbox One, and Switch, or maybe that day doesn't see the release because ninjas are sneaky and they operate under the cover of night, but either way, that game is coming out then. If you missed out on Hyperdimension Neptunia way back on PS3 and then missed out when they remade it on PS Vita and then remade it again on PS4, well, great news because they finally remade it for PlayStation 5 and now it's called Neptunia Reverse and it's out that day as well. On June 11th, PS5 gets Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, which must be enunciated lest you sound like you said ripped a fart by accident. That will hopefully give us a better idea of what the PS5 is capable of, but at the very least, it has a gun that turns people into shrubs, which is hilarious. PS5 Guilty Gear Strive that day as well, so you can make gorgeously animated people wearing way too many belts whip each other's asses faster than the human eye can even comprehend. Meanwhile, Nintendo Switch gets Game Builder Garage, which teaches the basics of game design and lets players share their creations on the internet, and you know that's gonna get real weird in no time at all. Also on Switch, as well as PS4, is Darius Burst EX Plus, another Chronicle, which is great if you don't think any of these other games have enough laser bullets, or flashing lights, or giant space slugs, or titles that sound like the memoir of a prescription drug. On the 22nd, you can squad up and party down with 3 friends to wail on some D&D monsters in Dark Alliance on PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Series X, and PC. If that sounds too rowdy and you need some damn peace and quietus, there's also Ender Lilies, Quietus of the Nights on PC and Switch. And it's the quietest game on this list. On the 24th, Alex Kidd pays a visit to Miracle World DX on PS4, 5, Xbox One, Switch, and PC, and PS1 RPG classic Legend of Mana gets a big HD remaster on Switch, PS4, and PC. Also on PC is Roguebook, a deck-building roguelike from the creator of Magic the Gathering. Golf is a nice, quiet, laid-back sport, unless Waluigi shows up and starts making a scene, and that's exactly what's going to happen in Mario Golf Super Rush, hitting the Switch on the 25th. You can beat up some super cool looking monsters using Psychokinesis in the anime looking brainpunk RPG Scarlet Nexus, which is on all the PlayStations and the Xboxes and the PCs that can run it. And last but not least, Roses Are Red, Violets Are Blue, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 is out for Switch, and I will not stop quoting that stupid meme when talking about that game. I think it's very funny, and I just won't let it go.
Let it go, let it go.
On the 29th, Nintendo Switch players can destroy all humans, finally, or defy their destinies in Disgaea 6, Defiance of Destiny. Hey, this guy right here defying his destiny, get a load of that! Anyway, there's also Curve Space, which takes classic arcade action but makes it, like, all curvy and in space. That's on PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Series X, Switch, and PC. And finally, PC, Switch, PS4, and Xbox One owners can revisit the classic 16-bit LucasArts games Zombies Ate My Neighbors and Ghoul Patrol and see if they are as brutally hard as you remember them being way back in 4th grade, and I think they are, even with the additional save states for the re-release. Oh, also at some point in June, Phantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis is supposedly fully launching. It is currently in beta, but only in the West on Xbox and PC, but I guess it's on PS4 and Switch in Japan, and I don't know if that's going to change at some point. They should probably send out an email or something. Anyway, as always, we probably forgot something or got something wrong or something got announced or... But this month we have a good excuse for being behind, and that is we're getting ready for E3, where they're going to announce all kinds of new games, and I'll have to start thinking of clever, funny ways to announce their release dates in a video 5 months from now, and also think of excuses for why we forgot to put stuff into the July video, which we'll make a month from now. As always, thank you all for watching. I very much appreciate it. Actually, no, I'm a little bit mad because enough of you watched these videos that it was a success, and now they make me do one that's for all of the stuff that's coming to the different video streaming platforms. So if you want to find out what's on Netflix or Hulu or Disney Plus or Amazon Prime Video or Shudder or Quibbly or Gumbo or whatever they're called, if you like to watch stuff as well as play stuff, go check that out. It's on the IGN channel. Did you know that Paramount Plus is getting 1,000 movies next month? I'm not joking. 1,000. I'm not even going to list them all. I'm going to go take a nap. Thank you. Good night.
Mass Effect, released in 2007, set the bar for what players expected from RPGs during the 360 era. It was entirely voice-acted, used a branching conversation system that allowed for different outcomes in each situation, and promised to have narrative ties that would last the entire trilogy. Pitched over dinner by Casey Hudson as a sci-fi RPG, he believed that it would become a mainstream phenomenon and a must-have game for the Xbox 360. Fast forward 14 years later, and we're on the precipice of seeing Mass Effect Legendary Edition release on modern-day consoles and PC to much fanfare, meaning I'd say the entire BioWare team delivered on that goal. We've been given early access to some footage that showcases dramatic updates to the original Mass Effect and a peek at how Mass Effect 2 and 3 will also be improved. But let's start with a closer look at the original, the one that needed the most care, to take a look at how it's been updated. Beginning with the combat sequence, we get our first look at the updated HUD, and yes, your weapons will still use a cooldown system and not thermal clips like in Mass Effect 2 and 3. In addition, the weapons use a different reticle, and there are no longer class-specific weapon restrictions that make certain guns unusable for certain classes. But let's talk about the textures for a second. Using AI upscaling, the new look of this garage scene on Noveria is night and day when compared to the 360. The specifics may appear subtle, but one I can point out in this scene is a much more natural, soft effect of the lighting. They're using ambient occlusion in the scene, which you can see more clearly on the boxes that emit shadows. Stepping away from combat for a moment, we also got a tour of the main hub in Noveria. This footage opens with an amazing look at the new female Shepard model as she exits the elevator. The character models looked a lot better in Mass Effect 3, and with the new character model feature, you can start Mass Effect 1 as that iconic female Shepard. The lighting and camera placement is changed here too, putting you a little bit closer to the characters as they move through the levels or down elevators. The Noveria port has been heavily reworked in Legendary Edition, and you see some small elements as you exit the elevator. Couches have cushions, and the textures on the walls and concrete floors have been reworked. In the main hallway, they've added light fixtures across the entire room